The convict Mukesh's mercy plea has been dismissed. This is, of course, big breaking news that is coming in at this point. Remember, just earlier we had reported how the Ministry of Home Affairs had recommended the dismissal and the mercy plea was put forth before the president. Right now, the latest that is coming in at this point is that the convict Mukesh's mercy plea right now stands dismissed. It has been rejected by the president. Remember, the convict Mukesh had filed the mercy plea on January 14th. So this is, of course, big news that is coming in at this point with regards to this entire case. And remember, we have been looking at the delay that has been caused in this entire process for the execution to be carried on. Our deputy news editor Meenakshi Bhanja with further updates on this. Meenakshi, the move that has been happening on with lightning speed, the fact that we saw in the morning, you reported of how the Ministry of Home Affairs had recommended dismissal. Big news coming in, the mercy petition of Mukesh has been rejected by the president.
Well, absolutely. The point worth mentioning here is that there has been absolutely zero delay insofar as processing of this file is concerned. Remember, it was only last evening that the LG put forth his suggestion to the Ministry of Home Affairs seeking rejection of this mercy plea. And then the MHA, after processing the file, forwarded it to the President's house/office. And just news coming in now is how the President has also not taken much time, rather no time, to go ahead and follow the advice which was rendered earlier by the MHA, which we broke first on Mirror Now, about how the MHA has recommended the rejection of this mercy plea. And subsequent to that, in accordance with the advice rendered by the MHA, the President has just gone ahead and rejected this mercy plea of Mukesh. So no time has been lost here. Remember, earlier in the day today, Nirbhaya's mother was citing her displeasure at the arguments which Delhi government has advanced now, saying as to how the 22nd January date for execution is non-executable, because subsequent to the president rejecting the mercy petition, as was being expected by the convicts even yesterday, Apurva, when they were saying that post the decision of the president, they would still want to try a judicial remedy of challenging the decision of the president in the Supreme Court, only to have it dismissed again. But they still want to try that remedy. Remember, we've seen that play out in the Yaqub Memon case, but the big news is no time has been lost by the union government here in processing this file, and no time has been lost from the president's end, because just earlier in the morning we broke the news about the MHA's recommendation to the president, and the president going ahead and dismissing this mercy plea ahead of this hearing in the trial court where the magistrate has sought for the files. So very quick, fast-paced developments coming in, and the government really very keen to send out the message about how it understands the sensitivity and also the grief factor which is being expressed by Nirbhaya's mother, especially after the line of arguments that have been advanced now by Delhi government 2 days back in the Delhi High Court.
So in this case, Meenakshi, with the president now rejecting the mercy petition, are all options exhausted, or are there any more options still left before the convict at this point?
Well, that is an interesting question. You see, Apurva, yesterday, Vinda Grover, one of these counsels for Mukesh, had made her intention very clear in Patiala House Court Sessions Judge presence. She said subsequent to the rejection of the mercy by the president, they would still file a challenge in the Supreme Court questioning the decision of the president. So while the Supreme Court does not have powers to judge the decision of the president, they will still want to try their luck by again moving a petition challenging the decision of the president in the Supreme Court. We have seen a precedent in the recent past pertaining to the Yaqub Memon case when the same methodology was followed after the president had rejected the mercy plea. And likewise, Mukesh is surely going to challenge the decision of the president, which is now a rejection of this mercy plea before the Supreme Court. Of course, we know what the outcome will be vis-a-vis the powers of the president and the Supreme Court judicial review on that power of the president. But still, they feel that this will be a judicial remedy which they want to exercise again to want to stretch out the inevitable.
Okay.
And this indication was given very clearly yesterday by Brinda Tumbar, who was earlier in a mic. And remember, her role has also come under the scanner when Justice Manmohan questioned as to how someone who has been a amicus in this case is now suddenly choosing to represent private parties, which is the death row convict Mukesh now. But be that as it may, the union government, MHA, and the Rashtrapati Bhavan no time on this one. Remember, we are slated for a crucial hearing at around 3:30 or 3:45 in the afternoon. But ahead of that,
Absolutely.
all these processes complete as we speak. The president's decision now known, the mercy petition technically, Apurva, no longer pending with the president. The president has decided he is rejecting this mercy plea.
Absolutely, Meenakshi, very important point that you mentioned. In fact, I was going to come back to you on that particular question as well. Since the Sessions Court is going to resume hearing in a short while, as you said, how significant is this going to be, the fact that the president has rejected the mercy petition? Now, in the light of the developments that are going to be taking place in the court, how significant is this development which is coming ahead of that hearing that is going to take place?
Well, one, Apurva, they can no longer argue that mercy plea is still pending. Number one, it is not pending anymore. It is not pending as we speak. It has been dealt with. It has been disposed of. President rejects the mercy plea of Mukesh. That's the first most important part. But now, when the court convenes, what they will say to the court is this, Apurva, that they want the 14 days to start from today. They will say that the decision of the president is also something which will fall within the scope of judicial review, as it did in the case of Yaqub Memon, and they would wish to try their luck of a challenge in the Supreme Court, which will be questioning the rejection of this mercy by the Honorable President of India. So that is the sequence of events that will play out. Of course, we do not know the outcome to that yet. Remember, the 22nd execution date as we speak has not yet been stayed by any court of law. It was 2 days back that the Delhi High Court also heard the same arguments seeking a stay on the death warrant. The High Court did not entertain it. On an earlier occasion, the Supreme Court, while dismissing the curative in a one-page order, has also said that it is rejecting the plea for stay on death warrant. So with the president's decision now in the public domain, they cannot argue any longer that their mercy plea is pending before the president. It has been dealt with. Now it stands as disposed, Apurva. So yes, we will have to wait and see the line which the sessions judge takes on this one, and obviously we will also have to wait and see the report that the Tihar jail authorities have to submit.
All right, Meenakshi, request you to stay with us at this point. These are, of course, big developments that are coming in. This is, remember, the president rejecting the mercy petition of the convict Mukesh. So the mercy petition right now stands rejected by the president. Let me go across to my colleague Tanima for further updates on this. Tanima, these are big developments coming in, and as our colleague was pointing out, Meenakshi said, there has been no delay when it comes to this process that has been put for the MHA. They're putting this to the president, they're rejecting it, and all of this happening before the hearing that is going to take place in the Sessions Court. Can you bring us up to speed with the latest that is happening right now with what the Supreme Court has ruled regarding the execution?
That's right. In fact, what we do know is that now the procedure has almost come to a full circle, that the mercy plea was filed. It went to the Delhi government first. The Delhi government, with its recommendations, would give it to the LG. The LG would then forward it along with his recommendations to the MHA. And the MHA finally, with its final recommendations, gives it to the president. Final decision, of course, the arbiter in the case is the president. The news that we are breaking right now, of course, is that the president has, in fact, rejected the mercy plea, which means now what exactly? As Meenakshi was also pointing out over there, is that there is still a legal option now left with the convict, in this case Mukesh, that he can still challenge this in the Supreme Court, and that is what exactly has been decided by his legal counsel, that this entire decision will in fact be challenged in the Supreme Court, and we'll of course have to wait and see what the top court has to say on this matter. But if we can bring in front of our viewers, what exactly does the top court have to say when it comes to how an execution should be carried out? If we can bring that graphics up for our viewers there, it will clearly point out what exactly is the procedure that the Supreme Court follows when it comes to these executions. There is a particular time gap. there is a particular time gap that the Supreme Court actually recommends when it comes to these executions. That's the graphics that we're looking at right now, that the top court says it's necessary to have a minimum period or a gap of 14 days between the time that the mercy plea is rejected by the president and the time of the execution. Now, this is, of course, a precedent which has been set by the Supreme Court in a previous case, but that is a precedent which is usually followed by jail authorities as well as the government administration when it comes to executing convicts on death row. If you look at the following point, the Supreme Court also goes on to mention, the next point will actually give out more details of what that precedent or that order had in fact been. The following point actually also says that why exactly is it necessary that there should be a time gap between the mercy plea being rejected by the president, which is usually seen as the final stage, and the execution. The minimum of 14 days between the receipt of communication of rejection of mercy petition and scheduled date of execution. So this is a recommended time gap which should be followed according to the Supreme Court order, which had been, which is seen as a precedent. If we go into the next point, why exactly is the 14-day period recommended? 14 days allows prisoner to prepare himself mentally for execution. Now, that is one of the reasons why the Supreme Court, the top court, felt in that order that there should be a gap of 2 weeks or 14 days, because it allows the convict to prepare himself mentally for execution. The following point also says, if you go into the next point, that this time period also allows prisoner's family to prepare for execution. So it's not just for the mental preparation of the convict, but also for the family members of the convict, if they want to visit him, if they want to mentally prepare themselves about this, execution to take place. So for these reasons, the Supreme Court has put this out as a recommendation that it should be followed generally in terms of executions. Now, that is exactly the reason why after this point was raised by the Delhi Police's counsel in the court, that because the mercy plea was pending with the president, whether or not the hanging can happen on January 22nd, that had in fact come under a big question mark because of this Supreme Court precedent that we are looking at. But now that the president has in fact rejected the mercy petition, we do expect that the wheels will turn fast. But still, as I mentioned, and as Meenakshi was also reporting, that the convict's lawyer, Mukesh's lawyer, have decided to challenge this decision of the president in the top court. So we'll of course have to wait and see what comes out of that as well.
All right, so those are important updates that are coming in, and Tanima, many thanks for joining us and helping us understand as to the 14-day period which has in fact been hotly contested right now and has been hotly debated as well, as to why Supreme Court has put those reasons in place on the notice of the execution. We'll have to see what happens in the session court today, which is going to resume the hearing, which is going to take place later in the afternoon.